My name is Josephine Carter. I'm 47 years old and currently living alone in Denver, Colorado. Last week, while standing at the airport gate with my suitcase in hand and the gifts I had carefully wrapped over the past 3 weeks, I received a single message from my mother. "We've agreed. You shouldn't come home for Christmas." No explanation, no call. Just me. And a holiday colder than all the winters combined. The house they were gathered in, warming themselves, was the very place I had quietly paid the mortgage on for the past 7 years. Have you ever been erased from a celebration you paid for by your own family? If you've ever been shut out of moments that were supposed to include you, leave a comment below, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me through the end. Because what happened after that message changed everything. I sat quietly in my small kitchen in Denver, next to a cup of tea that had gone cold without me noticing, staring at the dark phone screen. My mother's text echoed in my mind, word for word. So they had all agreed, not just one person, all of them, the entire family, the same people who once held my hand at graduation, who smiled wide when I sent the first transfer to fix the leaking roof, had now collectively decided to cross me out of the holiday gathering. For 7 years, I lost count of how many expenses I had covered for that house, that little white home on a quiet street in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The place I used to call home. The place I once believed, if I worked hard enough, if I stayed patient enough, there would always be a spot for me to return to. I remember vividly the day part of the roof was blown off during an early summer storm. Harper called me at 6 a.m., her voice panicked. "Sis, water's pouring into Mom's room. Can you help?" I was in a meeting with clients in Chicago, but the moment I heard her voice like that, I opened my banking app and transferred $3,000 straight to Mom's account. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't get a thank you text either, just a photo of the new roof and the words, "The contractor got it done." Then came the time Mom was hospitalized after a mild stroke. I was driving home from work when Dean texted, "I can't pull together the deposit for the hospital. Can you help?" I replied with 2 words, "How much?" 30 minutes later, the hospital had received $8,000. That didn't include the ongoing costs for medication, physical therapy, and ambulance rides not covered by insurance. I never blamed anyone. Mom had been a teacher. She spent her life budgeting every penny for her 3 children, but to this day, I haven't heard her say thank you. Even on birthdays, I was always the first to send gifts. I remember when Harper quietly mentioned on a call, "Rachel really loves animal picture books, but we're a bit tight right now." That evening, I ordered an imported set, complete with a handwritten card. 3 days later, Harper posted a photo of Rachel grinning with the books. But the caption read, "Family is love you don't have to say out loud." I reread that line more than 10 times. Not because it moved me, but because it stung. Was I even part of that family? Or was I just a familiar shadow, always finding solutions, always sending money, then fading away without a name? That house in Iowa, the one they still call Mom's house, had been deteriorating for years before I stepped in. From faulty wiring to warped floorboards, rusty pipes to an outdated fireplace. I paid to replace the entire plumbing system in the winter of 2019 after Mom called the moment the snow started falling. If the pipes burst, how am I supposed to live? Her voice full of blame, even though I'd never promised to cover everything. Still, I transferred the money, $10,000, no complaints. Later, Harper sent me a photo of the renovated kitchen, glowing with new ceiling lights, and the short comment, "Mom must be happy." I never asked who else chipped in. I figured no one did, because even basic heating maintenance, something essential every winter, was always handled by me. I set up auto pay so they wouldn't have to think about it, so Mom wouldn't have to check the mailbox for bills. I used to think that was enough. I believed that if I took care of everyone, they'd understand and include me in the circle of love. But with time, I started to feel like an outsider. Every holiday became a waiting game. A text inviting me to dinner, a phone call about the egg casserole I always made. But nothing ever came. I was just the gift giver, the bill payer, the person behind the curtain, and when the lights went out, no one remembered who turned them on in the first place. One day I called Harper, not to talk money, just to catch up. Rachel picked up. She hesitated, then said, "Mom says she can't talk right now." I could hear Harper laughing with someone in the kitchen, and I stood there in my tiny living room, feeling more squeezed than ever. I used to believe if I tried just a little harder, things would change. If I kept sending gifts, kept staying silent, Mom would finally see me. Harper would understand. Dean would be grateful. But now I realize not everyone wants to see, and not every hug is an embrace. Some arms open only to receive, not to hold anyone close. 7 years is a long time to live under the illusion that being good guarantees love. But I can't keep living as an unnamed extra in a story no one wants me in. And then, one sentence from Mom, one message from Harper. It felt like the final blow to every unacknowledged effort. That house, the one they're now decorating with garlands filling with laughter, that house stood only because of all the sweat and hope I poured into it. But if there's no place for me in that house anymore, maybe it's time I stop holding it up. I woke up earlier than usual on the morning of December 24th, even though I had barely slept the night before. The apartment was silent, winter light slipping through the thin curtains, casting a cold gray over the living room. I got up, made myself a cup of hot coffee, and tried to find a reason to move through the day without feeling like I was being left behind. I unlocked my phone, intending to double-check the flight I had canceled a few days earlier, then instinctively swiped over to the photo album. My finger paused on an old picture. Last year's Christmas. I was sitting in the far corner of the dining table. The dim lights didn't reach my face, but you could still see I was smiling, holding a tray of cookies I had baked myself, still trying to make the atmosphere a little more cheerful. I stared at the photo in silence, then tapped over to the message tab. The Carter family group used to have 3 main members, me, Harper, and Dean, but the name Carter family was gone, replaced by a brand new group titled The Real Ones. I clicked on it. No group photo. My name wasn't on the member list. I tried to send a message, wishing you a peaceful Christmas. A notification popped up. You are no longer a member of this group. I got up and grabbed my coat even though I had nowhere to go. It didn't feel like anger. It felt like something breaking quietly inside my chest. I didn't need anyone to acknowledge how much I had contributed. I just wanted to still be part of the picture, even if only in a faded corner. Back at the dining table, I opened my laptop. The shared drive we used to store holiday photos, gift lists, and budget spreadsheets, completely empty. The folder labeled Christmas Planning 2023 that I saw a few weeks ago was gone. I tried the old link. A red message appeared. Access denied. I didn't text anyone to ask. I didn't need clearer confirmation. It felt like someone had changed the locks on my house and never bothered to tell me. That afternoon, I opened Facebook to find a bit of holiday spirit, hoping to see family pictures from other people to remind myself that somewhere out there, things were still okay. But right at the top of my feed was a post from Harper. The photo loaded slowly, that familiar dining room, the same one where I'd ordered a brand new oak dining set last year, still lit by the warm ceiling light I chose from an end-of-season furniture site. There were 11 people in the photo, my mother seated in the middle, smiling softly, Harper standing behind her, one hand on Rachel's shoulder, Dean pouring wine, and a few relatives I no longer stayed in touch with. The table was full of holiday dishes, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, fruit salad, everything arranged with care. I wasn't in the photo, no one asked where I was, there was no empty seat, no name card on the table for me. I looked at the caption Harper had written beneath the picture. A complete family is one free from toxicity. My chest tightened, not because they called me toxic, but because they truly believed it. I zoomed in, studied each face. Dean was laughing with someone out of frame. Rachel wore the necklace I sent for her birthday, the one I wrapped in white paper with red trim and mailed when no one responded to my message. I scrolled to the comments. One of Harper's friends wrote, "So beautiful, truly a bonded family." Harper replied, "You have to filter out the negative energy to keep the air clear." I didn't respond, didn't react, but something inside me drew tight, as if all the silence I'd swallowed for years was rising, asking for an explanation. I used to think that if I didn't get angry, if I stayed quiet, things would pass on their own. But now I realize when people decide to erase you, they'll find every reason to make it seem reasonable. No matter how many good things you've done, they'll gather every uncomfortable emotion and pin it on you, like that label, toxic. I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked out onto the balcony. The cold wind slapped my cheeks, but I didn't go back in right away. I needed to feel that chill, to remind myself that I still had emotions, that I still existed, no matter how hard they tried to fade me out. That night, I didn't play music, didn't light candles, didn't call anyone. I just sat in the dark, thinking about all the dinners I paid for, all the gifts I sent, all the birthday wishes I never got in return. No one asked where I was, no one asked if I was okay. But for the first time, I began asking myself, am I really okay continuing to hold on to a place where they've already made space for me to disappear? I don't remember exactly when I began to doubt. Maybe it was when I saw the kitchen in Harper's Facebook photo, the same cream-colored tiles I chose, the walnut cabinets I had custom made from a shop in Des Moines. Everything was too familiar, too deeply tied to me. But I realized something. I was no longer considered part of it. That feeling of being erased from a painting you helped color wasn't just sadness anymore. It became a gnawing question. What else have they been hiding from me? I didn't sleep that night. I opened every stored email, every financial spreadsheet, every transaction connected to the Cedar Rapids house. I'd created a folder titled Family 6 years ago. Inside were maintenance invoices, renovation blueprints, before and after photos. I've always been meticulous. It's in my blood. At 3 a.m., I found an old email from the local bank addressed to Mom, CC'd to my account from last year. The subject line was simple: confirmation of property transfer. I had never opened it, thought it was just a routine notice. But when I clicked in, my heart stalled. Attached was a scanned copy of the deed transfer, complete with signatures, a notarized stamp, and a clearly printed line. Grantor Meredith Carter, Grantee Harper Sullivan, date of signing, December of last year. The same Christmas I had flown in with gift bags and cookies, sitting alone at the kitchen table because there was no room at the main one. I read it over and over, the property I had poured tens of thousands of dollars into. The house Mom once said she was just holding under her name temporarily had been officially transferred to my sister. No one told me. I leaned back in my chair, palms cold despite the heater running. I wasn't upset about not getting a share. I didn't regret the money. What hurt was the silence. They had quietly signed the paperwork, quietly cut me out, while still letting me pay the bills, still letting me cover the security system, utilities, insurance, as if I were a credit card they could use until it expired, then toss away without a word. I opened another document, Mom's tax filing from the past 3 years. I had helped her fill it out online. I never thought twice, until I looked closely at the additional income section. One number made me freeze. $72,000. I pulled up my own salary report for that same year. The figure matched exactly, not 1 cent off. A chill ran down my spine. I opened the bank folder, searched for a scanned copy of the loan extension Mom filed in 2021 to repair the roof. Page 1, property verification. Page 2, income declaration. There it was, my name, Josephine Carter, employed at Denver Financial Advisory. Annual income, $72,000. At the bottom, Mom's signature. A signature I knew by heart. She had used my income to file with the bank. No permission, no heads up. I felt like a fool, working, sending money, taking care of people who had made cold, calculated decisions behind my back. Everything I did came from trust, and that trust now sat next to forged signatures and false declarations. I didn't call anyone, didn't cry. I just sat, staring at the screen, asking myself how many times in my life I had trusted them without question. I remembered that conversation with Mom last year in the kitchen when she said, "I just need a little help. Once things are stable, we'll put your name on the deed." I was stirring tomato sauce at the time. Didn't think twice. I nodded. Like I always did. I trusted her because I wanted to. I never asked for paperwork, never demanded ownership, never set conditions, but now I realize I had been written out of the picture long ago. I was just too busy building it to notice. I walked to the window, drew the curtain open. The sky was starting to brighten. Snow was falling gently, laying a thin, white layer over the road. I stared at it and felt like that road. Silent, but with cracks spreading deep beneath the surface. I opened a new document on my computer. The header line, Legal and Financial Summary, Cedar Rapids House. I began listing each expense. Roof repairs, pipe replacements, electricity bills, insurance premiums, safety inspection fees. Then I noted every piece of evidence related to the use of my financial identity without consent. Every dollar I had poured into a place where the door was quietly shut behind me. I didn't know at that moment what I was writing this for. There was no plan, no intention of filing a lawsuit. I just needed one thing: the truth. Not to reclaim anything, just to record it for myself, so that when I looked back, I'd know I hadn't imagined it all. And when I saved the file into a folder named Exit Plan on my desktop, I didn't feel relieved, but I saw clearer than ever. They hadn't simply forgotten me. They had calculated, and they had chosen to move forward without me in the picture. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, the cursor blinking in the bottom right corner like it was urging me to make a decision. On the table sat a cold cup of coffee. Outside the window, snow fell like powdered sugar on a cake, and inside me, a silent turmoil no one could see. Continue or stop? That question had no sound, yet it echoed in my chest like the steady ticking of a clock wound too tight. I knew I could keep going as I had. I could still cover the mortgage, pay the utilities, send money for repairs on the back porch, buy new curtains Harper had suggested online. No one would ask, but everyone would assume I'd do it. If I continued, no one would have to feel awkward. Mom wouldn't lose face with her old friends. Harper could still call me distant but generous, and Dean could continue pretending he knew nothing. And me? I'd just need to stay quiet, like I had for years. But something inside me refused to stay silent anymore. Maybe it was because I finally saw how easily they could erase me from their lives, how Mom signed over the deed like I never existed. I ask myself, if I keep shouldering everything, isn't that like locking myself in a room someone else already sealed from the outside? I sank deeper into the chair, eyes fixed on the line, bank account auto pay on the screen. My hand hovered over the mouse, but didn't click. Not because I was unsure, but because I understood. Once I stopped, there'd be no going back. No one would call to ask why. No one would sit down and say, "Are you okay?" They'd only call when things broke. I opened a new file and titled it Exit Plan. The lines appeared steadily, not rushed, not hesitant. I listed every expense from 2016 to now, sorted into categories: repairs, utilities, insurance, medical assistance, personal transfers. Each line was a stretch of time I had silently held up, a house cracking at the edges, and a relationship slowly freezing over. Some expenses were laughably small, like the $80 I sent Mom for a portable heater because she said her bedroom was too cold and Harper had no money, or the $300 I wired to Rachel for SAT prep books while Harper posted photos captioned, "Birthday treats for my baby girl," like it all came from her. I didn't forget any of it. I opened my old email archive and found receipts, gas bill confirmations, photos of the electrician's invoice, warranty papers for the new furnace. Everything had been neatly filed, as if a part of me had always known this day would come. I also found the email from last year when Harper wrote, "Sis, Mom's a little stressed with the loan documents. Can you co-sign to help show income?" I replied with just 2 words, "Go ahead." I never asked how they'd use it. I didn't foresee the consequences. Now, looking back, everything fell into place like puzzle pieces, forming a picture where I was at the center. Not out of honor, but because I was the most convenient person to use. I didn't feel rage like people often say. There was no one to scream at, no words that could settle anything. I just felt as if I had finally woken up from a long sleep and realized the house I had fought to keep standing had been rebuilt without a space for me. I logged into my bank account, scanned the scheduled payments. The line, "Mortgage payment, $1,372, scheduled January 5th, blinked at the corner. I didn't cancel it. I clicked pause, a reminder to myself that I had a choice. Then I moved on to the utilities. Electricity, water, internet, all still under my name. I made a list of services to cancel in the coming week, noting each step clearly, just as I would for a client at work. Every account, every end date, every confirmation email would be saved in the exit plan folder. No one would receive a warning. I wasn't writing a farewell letter. I wasn't texting, "I can't keep doing this." I didn't owe them an explanation. I was simply reclaiming what was mine, what I had quietly given away over 7 years in exchange for the hope of being included. But now I understood. Some people will keep you in their lives only as long as you're useful. And I had been useful for far too long. I saved the file, set a password, backed it up to an external drive. As the screen dimmed in the pale light of a winter afternoon, I saw my own reflection on the glass. A woman standing at the sharpest edge of her life, to continue carrying what was never hers, or finally step away. I didn't say the answer aloud, but my hands had already begun to unfasten every anchor I once used to tie myself to a family that had long stopped tying themselves to me. On December 24th, I woke up earlier than usual, tidied the kitchen, made a pot of chicken soup with vegetables and slivers of ginger to warm the body. On the table was a small gift I wrapped for the little girl downstairs, the neighbor's daughter who always brought my mail on rainy days. I didn't play Christmas music. I didn't hang a wreath on the door. In my small apartment, I let the day pass quietly. Everything had been prepared the day before. On the morning of the 23rd, I logged into the service portals one by one. Iowa Central Electric, Cedar Rapids Water Department, the internet and cable providers. Each account still bore my name. The verified address matched the White House they lived in. The one I had once tried so hard to keep warm and running. I clicked Cancel, Auto Renew. Each field displayed a confirmation. My hands didn't tremble. Confirmation emails rolled in. Services will end at 6 p.m. on December 24th. I saved them all into a folder named simply Payment History Completed. No farewell messages, no instructions left behind. Those who were used to being supported without question would now have to learn how to manage. By evening, I put on a light gray sweater, poured myself a glass of red wine, and turned my phone face down on the table. I wasn't expecting a call, and when the phone vibrated, I didn't reach for it. A text appeared. "Can someone call Duke Energy? Power's out during dinner. Mom's freaking." Another message followed. "Wi-Fi's down too. Can't video call with the cousins. Lights are all off. Everyone's using flashlights like a horror movie." I tilted my wine glass gently. The warm light in my apartment lit up the smooth wooden tabletop. Outside, the snow fell like mist. Streetlights cast a soft glow onto the carpet beneath my feet. I opened my journal and wrote one line in blue ink. December 24th, 6:17 p.m. Power out. And no one has the right to turn it back on. I didn't feel triumphant. There was no smug satisfaction, only a deep silence I hadn't felt in years. They had grown so used to my invisible presence, the bills paid on time, the internet always fast when guests arrived, the kitchen warm in winter. So used to it, they never once asked who was behind the smooth running of it all. I didn't want them to pay, I just wanted them to stop treating sacrifice as something owed. An hour later, the phone lit up again. This time it was a message from Dean. Josephine, what's going on? I called the power company. They said only the account holder can restore service. I stayed silent. My eyes stared at the words, unmoving. There was nothing I needed to say. A few minutes later came Harper's message. The lights are out. Rachel's scared. Mom's yelling for someone to fix it. Are you doing something? I set my wine glass down, wondering how long it had been since Harper called me sis without sarcasm or distance. But even so, I didn't answer, because I knew any explanation now would just pull me back into the role I had finally stepped out of. I pulled the light blanket tighter around my legs and let out a slow breath. Not from regret, but because my body was finally relaxing after days curled in silent endurance. At 9 p.m., an email from Duke Energy was forwarded to me. Service cancellation confirmed. Account holder Josephine Carter. Service ended December 24th, 6 p.m. I saved it, then typed one line in my journal. I didn't shut off anyone's lights. I just stopped keeping them on. A little after 10 p.m., the phone buzzed again. A message from Mom. Why are you doing this? We're still family. I leaned back in my chair and read the line again and again. Family. The ones who took a vote to exclude me? Who signed over the house deed to Harper but still let me pay the bills? Who used my income to apply for a loan without ever saying a word? I didn't respond. I set the phone down and poured myself another half glass of wine. Outside, the snow had gotten thicker. I thought about the dinner table they were all sitting around, probably lit now by candles or flashlights, and I knew without a doubt that not one of them had the authority to call the utility company to restore service, because everything was still under my name. I didn't cut their power. The system simply followed the auto-cancel order on the exact date I had chosen. No one was pranked. No one was trapped. They just stopped receiving something they never valued. I closed my journal and blew out the candle. No holiday wishes, no soft music, just a night where I could sit in my own space with just enough light, clean air, and no need to pretend I belonged to a place that had long made no space for me. As I was folding the blanket in the living room, the phone buzzed quietly. A message appeared from an unsaved number. Just one short line. Auntie, it's Rachel. I have something you need to hear. I stood still for a moment, heart slightly heavy. Rachel, the niece I had quietly supported through every exam, every tutoring class, was now the first one to reach out to me since the blackout on Christmas Eve. A voice recording followed. No title, no description. I hesitated for a few seconds, then tapped play. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but clear enough for me to recognize the first voice. My mother. Raspy, familiar, tired but sharp. It sounded short. She's only good for paying the bills. Always quiet, always giving, then disappearing. She doesn't know how to love. I froze. The sound of a glass being slammed onto a table echoed faintly, followed by Dean's voice. Softer, but steady. As long as the money keeps coming, just leave her name on the contracts. If she finds out, we'll say Mom's old and signed the wrong form. Then came a short burst of laughter. No one protested. No one stepped in. I pressed pause. The screen stilled at the 25-second mark. Silent. I set the phone down and slowly walked toward the window. The snow had eased. The wet street reflected the headlights of passing cars. In my head, their voices still echoed, each word like it was etched into a wall I couldn't tear down. I turned back, sat down again, and played the audio. A second time, a third. By the fourth, I wasn't listening as someone wounded anymore. I was listening like someone staring at a final report after years of uncertainty. I used to think maybe I was asking too much, that if I just lowered my expectations, didn't hope for anything, they might eventually include me. But no, they didn't want to include me. They only needed me to fill the role they'd assigned, the financial provider. No emotional needs, no voice, no interference. I picked up my phone again and texted Rachel. "When did you hear those words?" Less than a minute later, her reply came. "Last week, Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting on the stairs near the kitchen. They thought I'd gone to my room." I typed slowly. "Why did you send this to me?" Rachel responded with a message longer than usual. "Because it felt wrong, because I know you've done so much and no one gives you credit. Mom tells people she handles everything and you just help occasionally, but I remember when you sent me those books, when you ordered the birthday cake Mom liked even though you weren't invited. Every time it was you. You're not perfect, but they talk about you like you're a stranger." I read every word, my hand gently gripping the blanket on my lap. No one else in the family had ever spoken to me like that. No one had ever acknowledged anything, and now a 17-year-old girl, the one person who owed me nothing, was the one who finally said something true. I didn't reply right away. I just wrote one line in my journal. Some truths don't need to be defended, they just need to be heard. I played the recording again, not to punish myself, but to imprint the reality. They weren't mistaken. My mother truly believed I couldn't love. Dean truly believed I'd keep paying, no questions asked. But at that moment, I saw myself more clearly than ever. Love isn't found in flowery words. It's in the things I did. Unseen, unmentioned, but constant. And maybe the most painful thing isn't being misunderstood. It's being used and then denied, like everything you gave never existed. I looked up at the screen, fading to black from inactivity. Then I took off my headphones, stood up, folded the blanket, and placed the journal in the drawer. In my mind, Rachel's words echoed again. "You're not perfect, but they talk about you like you're a stranger." I mouthed it silently, not to remember, but to affirm something inside me. I wasn't the only one who felt the hurt, and I was no longer alone in seeing the truth. I spent the entire afternoon reviewing every financial file I'd saved over the past 7 years. Electric bills, water bills, home insurance premiums, roof maintenance contracts, bank statements, even receipts for rugs and the air filtration system. Every expense was labeled, categorized, and carefully sorted by date. Not because I thought I'd need them one day, but because I had always lived with responsibility, even when no one asked me to keep records. I didn't label the subject lines with anything dramatic. No formal complaint, no allegation, and certainly no accusation. I simply wrote 3 short introductory lines, just the way I usually format reports for clients. "Dear Sir or Madam, I am providing transparent financial information related to my personal contributions, which may be relevant to the records currently held by your office. All attached documents are verifiable, time-stamped, and include supporting evidence." The first was to the bank where my mother has an active mortgage. The name came back to me instantly because it was where she and I co-signed a loan the first year after my father passed. They once sent me a thank you email for the trust and cooperation of your family. I attached a breakdown of 27 payments I personally made for that house, each with signed confirmation from the respective service providers. Every entry included the date, amount, and reason. At the bottom, I inserted a scan of the voice clip Rachel had sent me, the portion where Dean clearly said, "As long as the money keeps coming, just leave her name on the contract." No explanations necessary. The truth speaks for itself. Next, I opened a new tab and pulled up the website of the charity organization that had honored my mother last fall in their Model Community Mother program. The photo of her standing at the donation ceremony, hand resting gently on Harper's shoulder, had once made me shut my laptop in silence. To them, I sent a separate, concise report. No opinions, just a line-title summary of the funds I had transferred for each feature of the house, labeled as a home she built alone for her children and grandchildren. I included a certified property map showing Harper listed as the legal owner, and my mother no longer registered as head of household since December of last year. I didn't accuse her of deception. I simply let the numbers and documents tell the story. Finally, I sent an email to the Iowa state agency that once approved her for a financial aid program reserved for single women without stable income. I wasn't sure whether they had verified her claimed earnings, but I attached a copy of the 2021 financial declaration she submitted, where under financial assistance from family, she listed my full name and income, an amount she never asked permission to disclose. I included a scan of my actual pay stub for that year, the email from Harper asking, "Can you help mom use your name on this to smooth the application?" and a voice clip of my mother saying, "She only knows how to pay, not how to love." I didn't emphasize emotion. I let them read, listen, and draw their own conclusions. Before hitting send, I reviewed each email one last time, correcting formatting errors, ensuring all attachments opened correctly and were clearly referenced. I labeled the emails as verified information, not complaint or urgent. I wanted them to understand. I wasn't sending these out of anger. I was sending them because the truth finally deserved a space of its own. All 3 emails left my outbox within 5 minutes. I sat quietly in front of the screen, feeling neither lighter nor heavier. The best word I could find for it was steady, as if I had finally laid the last brick in a structure I had spent years believing I needed to carry on my own. The phone didn't buzz. No instant replies in my inbox. But I wasn't expecting any. I'd spent enough years taking quiet action. Silence afterward didn't surprise me anymore. I stood up, poured a glass of water, and looked outside. The snow had stopped. The streetlight cast a golden glow across the pavement in a silent stretch. I didn't want anyone to suffer consequences. I just didn't want the things I quietly did to be claimed by someone else. When I returned to my desk, my screen displayed. Email successfully sent. All attachments delivered and saved in sent items. I closed my laptop, unhurried. The screaming question of why that had kept me up so many nights was gone. In its place was one quiet certainty. I had finally put my name where it belonged. And at the right time, I had let the truth go exactly where it needed to be. 3 days after I sent those emails, the charity's website posted a brief update, tucked quietly under the photos from last fall's event. Certain community involvement details are currently under review for transparency. The photo of my mother smiling brightly in the kitchen, one I paid to retile and install that chandelier in, was taken down. No explanation, no names mentioned. But I knew exactly what that silence meant. Sometimes, quiet says more than a full-length article ever could. I didn't feel triumphant, just calm. No sense of teaching them a lesson, no inner celebration. Everything happened the way I imagined. No shouting, no spectacle, but consequences still arrived at every doorstep. The next day, I missed a call from an unknown number in Des Moines. Soon after, an email landed in my inbox from the internal legal department of the bank where Uncle Ray worked. Dear Miss Josephine Carter, we are currently reviewing financial guarantees made under your name in 2021 relating to the mortgage file registered to Dolores Meredith Carter. During our audit, we identified discrepancies regarding the authorized use of your personal financial information. I read the message silently, unsurprised. Ray. My mother's younger brother had always prided himself on helping family take shortcuts. I remembered the day we signed for a roof repair loan. He told my mother in the kitchen, "Just have Josephine put her name down. Her salary's high, easier to get approved. She won't care." And I didn't care, not until I found out those numbers had been tied to debts I never agreed to. I didn't respond immediately. I filed the email in a separate folder, attaching Rachel's voice clip. Dean's line, clear as day. As long as the money keeps coming, just leave her name on the contract. I didn't need to explain further. They could follow the thread themselves. 2 days later, a sealed envelope appeared in the mailbox outside my house. No return address, but the handwriting on the front was unmistakable. slanted slightly left, neat, rigid. My mother's handwriting. I opened the letter. Inside was a pale yellow sheet, folded in half, with the faint scent of old paper and the soft perfume she used to wear when she was still teaching. Josephine, I've been thinking a lot. Maybe things went too far. If you come back, I'll leave the house to you. I know you've supported us all these years, and even if I never said it, I've always known. Families aren't perfect, neither are you, but no one goes through life without making mistakes. If you return, I promise to leave everything to you one day. There was no I'm sorry. No acknowledgement that she signed the transfer to Harper without telling me. No mention of the recording I'd listened to 4 times in that room full of stone silence. I sat for a while before folding the letter and placing it gently into the bottom left drawer of my desk. I didn't tear it, didn't throw it away, but I also didn't write back. I didn't want her to think I did anything for the house. I never did. I just couldn't pretend to forget that she was the one who erased my name from that house. With her signature, and with her silence. I laid my hand on the wooden desk, tracing the grain as it ran quietly beneath my fingertips. My heart no longer felt like the storm it had been in recent weeks. Not because I was stronger, but because I had finally stopped waiting for people to admit what they never wanted to see. That afternoon, I received another message from Rachel. "Did you get a letter? Mom said she sent one." I replied simply, "Yes. I've put it away." Rachel typed another message, "Are you okay?" I paused for a moment, then wrote back, "Better than ever. I don't need a house. I need space to live without constantly having to prove I deserve it." The screen dimmed as I set my phone down. My mother's voice, Dean's voice, the echoes of sarcastic laughter mixed with old wine still lingered in my mind, but I didn't replay them anymore. I let them drift into the background, and for the first time in years, I felt myself sitting in a space that belonged entirely to me. A place where no one could rewrite my role, and where I didn't have to stand outside waiting for an invitation that was never coming. On the morning of December 25th, I woke up without an alarm. Sunlight poured through the sheer curtains, snow covered the balcony, and not a single sound came from the world outside. A silence unlike the heavy quiet that had haunted me in years past. This one didn't echo absence. It felt like a soft reminder that I was exactly where I was meant to be. I walked to the kitchen, brewed a small pot of coffee, added a touch of cinnamon and almond milk, like I always do. On the stove, I made a pot of oatmeal with blueberries and walnuts. I set the wooden table by the window, placing a little pine sprig I had arranged yesterday. No tall tree, no blinking lights or elaborate wreaths, just small things. Enough. Like me. I played some soft jazz. A woman's voice filled the kitchen gently, like an old friend walking in and smiling without a word. No explanations, just presence. Around 10 a.m., there was a soft knock on the door. I opened it to find Miss Tammy, my elderly neighbor from upstairs, wearing a thick sweater and holding a silver tin box. A faded snowflake design marked the lid, worn for many seasons. "Are you free?" she asked. "I baked too many ginger cookies. Got a few extras?" I smiled, opened the door wider. "Come in, I just made coffee." She sat on the cushioned chair by the table, unwrapped her scarf, cheeks rosy from the cold. I poured her some ginger tea and placed the tin in the center of the table. Her eyes wandered around the apartment, stopping at a small potted plant near the window. "It's so quiet here," she said, breaking a cookie. "But a good kind of quiet." I nodded, wrapping my hands around my coffee mug. "I think peace and quiet is the most precious thing we can hold on to on days like this." She looked at me and didn't ask anything else. The way she just sat there, not interrupting, not assuming, made me more grateful than any 100-word condolence. We didn't talk much, just ate, sipped, and watched the snow fall outside the glass. By noon, as she got ready to leave, I walked her to the door. Before stepping into the elevator, she turned, gently touched my shoulder, and said, "You're a kind woman. Don't let anyone make you forget that." I stood there, watching the elevator doors close, saying nothing. but my hand stayed on my shoulder, as if to hold on to some of that warmth. When I returned inside, there was a new message from Rachel. You're the only one in this family who ever taught me right from wrong, not with words, but by example. I stared at the screen, feeling like someone had just tugged gently on a thread I thought had already snapped inside me. I replied after a moment, without editing. It wasn't you walking away from family, it was you finally stopping the fight in a place where you no longer belonged. The screen showed seen, then nothing more. But I didn't feel empty. Words left unsaid didn't bother me anymore. That one message alone reminded me I wasn't alone in the world. That once cast me out. That afternoon, I tidied the kitchen, washed the mugs, folded the dish towel. I opened the window briefly to let in the cold air. The smell of cinnamon, ginger, and coffee drifted through the room, wrapping everything in a soft, quiet honesty. There were no doorbells, no voices, no one calling me from another room. But I didn't have to pretend to be okay while feeling hollow anymore. I walked to my desk, opened my notebook, and wrote one final line for the day. I didn't take revenge, I just stopped funding ungratefulness. I closed the notebook and placed it on the shelf. On the wall hung the painting I'd bought from a small art fair in late fall, a white background, a single chair, and a streak of light cutting in from a window. When I'd bought it, someone asked why I chose such a plain picture. I didn't know how to answer then. Now it was crystal clear. Because sometimes a quiet seat in the light, where no one pushes, no one expects, is the most precious thing I've ever had. I don't know if you're listening to this story from your warm kitchen in the middle of a quiet evening or during the rush of life, but if you've stayed with me this far, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between holding on to a relationship at all costs or holding on to yourself? Have you ever stayed silent, hoping that enough love would earn you acknowledgement, only to be met with exclusion, indifference, or even ridicule? If you've ever felt that, I hope you'll leave a few words below this video. They don't have to be long, just honest. We don't choose where we're born, but we can choose where we're heard, where we're seen, where we're allowed to be ourselves without sacrificing our self-worth. If this story made you reflect on something from your own life, an old house, a relationship that drained you, a corner of your past you've never spoken aloud, share it. I'll read every one, because somewhere out there, someone else might need to know they're not alone. And if you want to keep following real stories about family, relationships, and the quiet but powerful moments that shape our lives, hit subscribe. There's more to come. The smallest slices of life often speak the loudest. I'll see you in the next story.